This orchestra reflects the Israeli society, which is, I think, very wonderful thing, that music and life is inseparable.
Three musicians in the orchestra: my grandfather, my father, and my uncle.
I was born in Israel, so I'm Israeli.
I play the oboe and English horn with the orchestra for the last 38 years.
We also sit in the same stand, actually, so it's hi, Papa, in the same stand. Что я тебе каждое утро говорю, здравствуй, Papa.
His son and his daughter, that means myself and my sister, and we ended up in the same orchestra, continuing his way.
It has a tremendous finesse, and it loves to perform. It's a real performance orchestra.
This orchestra is full of characters. There's so many interesting people.
It has such an extraordinary way of encompassing the audience. The audience takes the orchestra and they take the audience. It's absolutely extraordinary. Very few orchestras can do that.
My father grew up in Vienna, and my mother grew up in Warsaw, and they got married here in Israel. And I remember very well they were discussing visits of Arthur Rubinstein when he once came to Warsaw and the other time came to Vienna. And which interpretation did he use when playing in Warsaw or in Vienna? And they were comparing it here to the interpretation which they heard here while he was playing a Chopin concerto or Beethoven or Tchaikovsky or whatever. And they were arguing, sometimes they were disagreeing. They said, no, he did this cadenza a little longer here, or shorter, or faster, or whatever. It was very interesting to listen to their arguments.
Arthur Rubinstein, who came every year, I think, he came very often here. He was a great friend of Israel and the orchestra. His sense of proportion, dynamic and rhythm was outstanding. I learned so much from this man. You know, I was sitting 2-3 meters from him, and his playing was so much making music that you could learn from every phrase.
Rubinstein loved Zubin Mehta. He enjoyed playing with him all the time. Whenever he could have had him, he preferred it. He really enjoyed him. They had very good understanding together. Mehta is one of the greatest accompanists as a conductor. To accompany either soloist, either pianists or violinists or singers in opera or in songs, he does it fantastic.
1976, 18th of April, Rubinstein was 80 years old, and he decided to do the last recordings of the Brahms concerto with the Israel Philharmonic Orchestra. He was completely blind. He couldn't see anything. I never forget Zubin Mehta take him by his hand, bring him to the stage. We were shocked, the people of the orchestra, how he's going to play the Brahms concerto. Not seeing anything. And then he asked Zubin, please help me to sit down. He sat down, and they started to play the Brahms concerto. It was unbelievable, like a young horse. Something played. It was fantastic.
Two. Okay. Now with the clarinet. 1, 2, 3. I was only 25, and it was a love at first sight. Little swell. Now piano. Piano.
When he came first time, he was like the son of the musicians. Now he is the father of the musicians.
Well, it all began in 1961. I was sitting in Vienna, completely without any work, with my family and 2 children, and I get a telegram saying to please come, if possible, to Israel in May because of the cancellation of Maestro Eugene Ormandy. It was very good atmosphere, very good feeling, and then they invited me again. Pianissimo.
Ich habe es geliebt, unter Meta zu spielen, immer. Ganz egal, was er dirigiert hat. Ob es eine Beethoven-Symphonie war oder ob es eine Schostakowitsch-Symphonie war oder ob es eine Schnitzke-Symphonie war. Es war immer großartig. Es war fast immer auswendig dirigiert und es war immer toll.
I need to do the whole oboe thing again. $182. Yehudin, you're not accompanying him. I'm going with you more than with him. Come, 182. No, listen to him.
Zubin did many great things for the country, with the orchestra and everything, definitely. It's, I think, being a mensch, being a human being, a good one, the one that understands.
The orchestra was formed by Bronislaw Huberman in 1936. He collected musicians from Middle Europe and was able to somehow really convince a lot of people, I'm sure, to make sure that the Jewish people, the Jewish musicians in Middle Europe, have a place to perform. Particularly around 33, 32, 33, 34, when all the problems began, he found a way to bring them here.
My grandfather, Yakov Surovich, had been playing in the Warsaw Philharmonic for about 27 years, and he knew all the great musicians of that time, conductors and soloists, and as such he of course knew Bronislaw Huberman very well, and they were very good friends. And Huberman contacted him and asked him to look for young musicians, young Jewish musicians in Poland, and help him arrange an audition so that he, Huberman, could come and listen to their playing and decide who of them will come to the Palestine Philharmonic Orchestra.
Am 26. Dezember 1936 fand das erste Konzert des Palestine Orchestras statt, das Palästina Orchester statt, unter Leitung von Arturo Toscanini für diese Konzerte und dieses Sein mit dem jüdischen Orchester in Palästina, in dem zionistischen Palästina. Für Toscanini war das eine Tat, mit der er den Faschismus in Italien und den Nationalsozialismus in Deutschland begegnen konnte, sehr feindlich begegnen konnte. Ja? Und das Orchester war damals vorbereitet worden für Toscanini von einem Cousin, einem Vetter meines Vaters, Hans Wilhelm Steinberg, der 1899 geboren und bekannter Dirigent in Deutschland war und natürlich auch weg musste. Und der bereitete das Orchester, wie gesagt, für Toscanini vor und dadurch hatte ich Zugang zu Proben und auch später zu Konzerten.
The first performances were with Toscanini and Huberman at the port, in a hangar, big hangar at the port of Tel Aviv.
Es war kein Land für alte Menschen. Es war ein Land für junge Menschen. Und es war ein Pioniergeist im Lande, auch im Orchester. Man gehörte zu den Aufbauern des Landes. Und das ist eine Sache, die kann man nur emotional begreifen. Dieser Pioniergeist, der überall herrschte. Egal ob im Kibbutz oder auch im Orchester.
I was 11 years old, and I heard the dress rehearsal with Toscanini. An orchestra in those times, Israel, it was the Palestine Orchestra then. It was a great thing for the people. It's something special. An orchestra here, a big orchestra with such a great conductor.
Das Orchester, das hier von Huberman gegründet war, 1936, das war ein mitteleuropäisches Orchester. Durchschnittlich Alter 25 Jahre alt, das heißt, es waren Menschen, die rund um 1910 geboren waren, in Deutschland, Polen, Ungarn und Tschechoslowakei damals und Österreich. Das war das Orchester. Und diese Kollegen, so klang es auch. Es klang wie jede deutsche oder österreichische Orchester damals. Ich spreche jetzt nicht von Qualität, sondern von Klangkultur.
I was born in Ukraine, in Kiev.
I was born here in Tel Aviv, in Israel.
From Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm American, and I've been living in Israel for 32 years.
I played in the military band in Israel, and then I studied in the States, in the United States.
I was a student of legendary concertmaster of this orchestra, that now he is retired already about 15 years, Chaim Taub.
I studied with Mordechai Rechman. He was the principal player here for 45 years. Came to study with him, and I did my audition in New York.
Geige habe ich mit 7 Jahren angefangen zu spielen in Lausanne.
My grandfather was a conductor, my mother is a pianist, and I was born to a very musical city like Novosibirsk. So I studied there with Professor
אני מנגן בתזמורת הרבה שנים, למעלה מ-30 שנה.
I am from the former Soviet Union. I was born in Tashkent, Uzbekistan. It was one of the republics.
הבמה הזאת ניגנתי כשהייתי ילד עם בן גוריון גם.
The premise is that I love music. I really, really love music. And when you like something so much, when it's your passion, you find time for it. The truth is that I'm very sleep deprived because I try to practice and there is orchestra rehearsal, there are my children. But thank God we have concerts out of town in Haifa and Jerusalem, and I always sleep on the bus. I grew up in Israel, and it's impossible not to have heard about the Israel Philharmonic. It was always in the background, and since I was playing music ever since I was a child, my parents took me to some concerts. And my teacher was a former principal cellist of the Israel Philharmonic, kwoלל.
Ich war schon im Orchester 46, ich war schon 2, 3 Jahre im Orchester und ich war Solo-Fagottist, aber nicht offiziell. Und um den Titel richtig zu bekommen, musste ich ein Probespiel ablegen vor Leonard Bernstein, ich habe ihn vorgespielt, und auch vor Sergei Kossewitsky, und dann habe ich das offiziell bekommen. Leonard Bernstein fing an, alle seine Talente zu zeigen, als Dirigent, Solist und Komponist. Jeremiah haben wir die Sinfonie gespielt von ihm. Er hat Ravel Pianokonzerte gespielt. Es war ein fantastisches Erlebnis. Sein Talent war sofort zu erkennen. Und er war bei uns sehr oft, sehr, sehr oft.
And I'm terribly, deeply honored and profoundly touched to this orchestra, which I love like my family. Everyone in this orchestra is so dear to me.
Es war schon so international. Aber wir haben viele Musiker noch bei uns gehabt, viele gute Musiker, die Zeit seines Lebens nicht richtig Hebräisch gelernt haben. Wir wurden immer mit Englisch angesprochen oder Deutsch, auch sehr oft mit Deutsch.
After I graduated Juilliard, Maestro Mehta contacted my teacher and asked him maybe he could recommend someone to play with the Israel Philharmonic. And well, I had an audition in Carnegie Hall, and there was a guy sitting next to Zubin, who Zubin was talking to him all the time. And well, I played okay, and I got the job, and then I asked the gentleman what his name is, and he says to me like, "You'll know my name when you get to Israel." Okay. Anyway, I get to Israel, and there's a picture of this guy who I saw at the audition. And who is the guy? It's Frederick R. Mann. The Israel Philharmonic is a cooperative. That means we, the players, own and run everything. On paper, Maestro Mehta works for us. On paper. We hire professionals to run the show for us. We have a general manager, we have a financial department, we have a subscription department. But the highest governing body are the permanent members. I think it's a very important thing that we're talking about, because we're sitting in a auditorium. If the place is not clean, this is my house. I feel like I'm the boss here. So it's in my interest that things be clean. It's my interest that the orchestra to play well, that we have the best conductors, and we play as best as we can all the time on the stage. And I feel that this is the responsibility of every permanent member of the orchestra who is a member of the organization.
This orchestra works very hard because so many subscribers. You couldn't buy a ticket practically. Only standing room only, because tickets were given, from that person to his son, to his daughter, or something like that. I mean, it was really. I mean, I think the orchestra had the most abonnement all over the world, and we had to play many concerts. 6 concerts in Tel Aviv, 3 concerts in Haifa, and 1 concert in Jerusalem. We had to repeat the program sometimes 12 times.
In '57, October '57, the orchestra moved to the home of today, the Mann Auditorium, which was, of course, a great, great change for the orchestra. Can't forget the opening concert of that hall. Lenny Bernstein was conducting, Isaac Stern, Tortelier, and Rubinstein were the soloists at that concert, which was unforgettable also, Bernstein,
Wir waren einfach wie verzaubert. Da sitzt ein Mensch von etlichen 20 Jahren, steht auf dem Podium, dirigiert eine Schumann-Symphonie, die 2. Schumann-Symphonie, so wie wir sie noch nie vorher gespielt haben. Es war ein neues Erlebnis. Dann kam er im nächsten Jahr wieder und machte seine Jeremiah-Symphonie, die Jeremia-Symphonie. Und da gibt es einen Platz, der rhythmisch sehr schwierig ist. Ich kann es singen. Das ist ein Multirhythm, ein Multirhythmus, der für Leute, die das nicht gewöhnt sind, sehr, sehr schwierig ist zusammenzuspielen. Allein kann es jeder machen, aber zusammenzuspielen ist das sehr schwierig. Er hat uns dieses Scherzo das ist das Scherzo aus der Jeremiah-Symphonie, hat nicht länger als eine halbe Stunde gedauert, bis wir das sehr gut konnten. Und da haben wir verstanden, wer Lenny Bernstein ist.
Not bad, not bad. I don't have a feeling of authority, really, in the sense that I am telling everybody what to do, but I am coaxing or playing it with them in a way. It's very hard to describe. Breathing with them, pulsing with them, suggesting.
My father arrived in Israel with an illegal ship after traveling for about 6 months, and he started his career here in Israel as a pianist. And this is what he did in Vienna. He was a pianist and accompanist, and he wrote music for cabaret and chansons. But when coming here to Israel, or to Palestine rather, he could not continue doing that. There was no audience for that. There was no demand for that, and he had to change his profession. So he decided to try and learn the bass. And I remember as a little child listening to him practicing. He was practicing hours, scales, etudes. It was unbelievable. I remember long before I started playing the bass, I knew most of these etudes and parts I knew by heart from the practicing of my father. He played an audition, and he didn't go. He was not good enough, and took another year, practiced more, and then played an audition. And the conductor that accepted him was Kusevitsky, who was a bass player himself. So he really made it, and this was in 1951 or 52. And at that point, he joined the orchestra.
direkt nach dem Friedensschluss in Europa konnten wieder Dirigenten und Solisten ersten Ranges zu uns kommen. Der erste große Dirigent, auch 1945, kam in der Saison 45, 46, war Bernardino Molinari aus Italien. So kamen etliche, auch Malcolm Sargent kam wieder und, Malcolm Sargent kam damals noch nicht wieder, denn der hatte ein bisschen Angst, hier waren Unruhen. Ja, hier begannen bereits die Unruhen, die sogenannten Vorbereitungen zum Befreiungskrieg. Und, aber wir haben halt immer wieder weiter gespielt und wir waren sehr glücklich, nun endlich wirklich wieder mit großen Dirigenten spielen zu können. Dann kam die Staatserklärung im Mai 1948 durch Ben Gurion im damaligen Museum Tel Aviv, im Rothschild Boulevard, bei der wir aufgefordert worden waren, die Hatikwa zu spielen am Ende der Erklärung. Und so waren wir 40 Leute, haben wir uns gequetscht in der oberen Etage dieses Museums und den Stufen, die darauf führten. Und ich hatte das Glück, dass sogar, ich hatte etwas Chutzpe, wie man das auf Hebräisch nennt. Ich glaube, jeder weiß heute, was das ist. Und habe mich da ein bisschen runtergedrängt, um uns sehen zu können, um den Ben Gurion sehen zu können. Das ist mir auch gelungen, bis wir dann die Hatikwa gespielt haben. Da muss ich sagen, haben nicht nur wir, sondern viele Leute geheult. Wir haben einen Staat. Wir wussten, jedenfalls der größere Teil inklusive meiner selbst, wir wussten ganz genau, was uns bevorsteht. Wir wussten ganz genau, dass wir einen sehr schweren Krieg haben werden. Und der Krieg war sehr schwer. Aber wir waren sehr stolz, dass wir bei dieser Staatserklärung mit dabei sein durften.
Bernstein came to Israel and told first thing what I want to do is to play for soldiers in Beersheba, who was liberated just a week before. He took the orchestra. He was sitting on stone. They put the wooden chairs on stones, on rocks, and play with him Gershwin Rhapsody in Blue and Mozart. That was something unbelievable.
This is my room, more music-oriented. And you should also get a look at this picture, because this is Zubin Mehta playing the double bass.
I came to Israel as a tourist. I was on my way to Italy to study. I had the name of a very good teacher and a recommendation in Rome. I was on my way to Rome, and I bought my ticket from Boston to Tel Aviv, going back through Rome, and then back to, I thought I would be a year in Rome studying. And I came to Tel Aviv for 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever. I was staying with my father's cousin. And then my cousin got me an audition through one of his neighbors, who was a cellist, retired cellist, the Philharmonic. And I literally knocked on the conductor's door, Zubin's door, and Zev Steinberg, the violinist, violist, was inside, and I said, "Maestro, I would like to play an audition." And he said, "Well, we had an audition already." And Zev Steinberg immediately said, "Why doesn't he play on the viola audition?" And that was my in. These are our chickens. They all come back to the same thing and they say, you guys have a sound that's full of passion that you don't hear anyplace else. And that's nice to hear.
There is a special sound. There is a special sound. It's a very deep, dark, warm sound. And it kind of surrounds you and holds you.
What we feel, we can express. You know, it's not like in Europe. Everyone is like in a box, or in America, and everyone with a smile. Here it's much more natural, maybe.
There are a lot of Russian and former Soviet musicians in the orchestra. Of course, it influences on the sound.
It's open mind, and for me, it's not Russian and not Israeli and not Hebrew. It's something, you know, like feel at home.
After the Six-Day War, 1967, there was a special concert, and I was lucky to take part in all those great events, really.
Another fantastic experience with Bernstein was after the Six-Day War, when we played the Resurrection Symphony on Mount Scopus. People really cried there. That was something unforgettable. He conducted the last movement of the Resurrection Symphony. Isaac Stern played the Mendelssohn violin concerto.
The Scopus was taken, retaken, opened up. And so we went up for a concert, and we played in this open-air theater. And I remember I borrowed a large hat with a huge brim. Not so much for me, but I wanted to cover the violin because we were right in the sun. There was no way to get out of it.
I came to Israel the first time in 1949. And I don't know how many times I've been here, but it must be at least, 100 since then? I've been here throughout the history of the country almost. No.
But it's such a pleasure for me. I must tell you, all this work, the overtime, it's all so worth it when you have people like that.
What was extraordinary is to see how, and that was many musicians there from that time.
Vehicles. Big flags of Israel, under that it was written, welcome the
Diese Tour in Deutschland hatten wir ausgemacht, zusammen mit den deutschen Behörden, noch die Deutsche. Und dann kam das Konzert in Berlin, in der Philharmonie. Erste Malersymphonie. Die Malersymphonie war zu Ende, Beifall, Beifall, Beifall. Wir spielten erst einen slawischen Tanz von Dvořák als Zugabe, dann noch einen. Und dann hatten wir keinen mehr. Und die Leute klatschten, haben uns nicht von der Bühne gelassen. Und schließlich am 5. oder 6. Mal, dass er rauskam, sagt der Meta zu unserem Konzertmeister Chaim Taub, now we're going to play Hatikva.
Und wir spielen die Hymne. Und die Menschen waren da und ich habe Tränen in deren Augen gesehen. Das war hinreißend. Kann man nicht vergessen.
Und das Publikum.
Unglaublich.
I will never forget that 5 minutes of emotional wrenching inside. I wasn't crying. It was not a demonstration of emotional outlet. It was just unbelievable. For me, it was just the most extraordinary moment where a symbol, like a hymn of a country, can become so unique in a place where such tragedy took place.
The question of Wagner comes up all the time. We played it in 1981 for the first time. Since Toscanini did it, don't forget, in the first programs of Toscanini, there was the Lohengrin Vorspiel also. But after that came the whole Nazi period, that was in 1936 that he played it.
There was a big objection from the public, for the audience, and several times Zubin tried to perform Wagner, but
and we have been talking about this for many years now, of how to do and how to perform the music of Richard Wagner with the utmost taste as possible. And we came upon the conclusion, so that we would not have in any way a captive audience. In other words, there is absolutely no obligation for anyone. We would like to play for you tonight some of the music of Richard Wagner, and we would like those of you to stay who would wish to. But there is absolutely no obligation, and we will not hold it against anyone.
You will not conduct Wagner. You will not conduct Wagner.
Wagner, der große Verehrer des Heldentums. Und wen macht er zum wirklichen Helden seiner Nibelungensaga? Wer bleibt als Sieger zum Schluss übrig? Alberich, der kleine dreckige Zwerg. Der bleibt übrig. Wann wird Parsifal frei? Als er bescheiden wird und klein und nachgiebig und anständig und nicht mehr protzt mit seinen Waffen und seinen Siegen. Da wird er ein Mensch. Wie passt das zu seiner politischen Anschauung. Es passt überhaupt nicht. Ich war lange Zeit dafür, den Antisemiten Wagner von dem Komponisten Wagner zu trennen. Aus dem einfachen Grunde, dass ein Orchester, das nicht Wagner spielt, dem fehlt etwas. Dem fehlt etwas. Wagner schreibt eine Sprache, die jedes Orchester können muss und kennen muss. Andererseits, ich habe einen Großvater in Theresienstadt verloren. Ich kann die Leute verstehen, die nicht nur Wagner nicht hören wollen. Die Leute, die so furchtbar dagegen sind, sind überhaupt keine Musikliebhaber, größtenteils jedenfalls. Aber ich kann diese Leute verstehen, dass sie die Musik eines geharnischten Antisemiten, wie Wagner es war, nicht hören wollen. Also wenn die letzten Überbliebenen aus den Konzentrationslagern verstorben sind, dann wird man hier auch Wagner spielen.
הזמנתם את כל העיתונות בשביל לסדר את הזה.
I guess that they will come, the orchestra will perform it. You know, after the generation of people who suffered from the Nazis, who came from the concentration camps, etc. The younger generation later, I guess that it will be performed.
From the musical point of view, I am convinced that we must play it and we will play it one day, because this is lacking in the musician's education. We cannot play the music of the family of Wagner, which is Strauss, Bruckner, Schönberg, Mahler, and not play the main source of this musical information.
I played with the orchestra in '61. First time I played a youth concert. And the next time I played was in 1968. It was like basically coming home. I had known, of course, many, Dani Beniamini and Chaim Taub and Uri Pianka and Rechtman and all these extraordinary musicians. I knew them when I was a little boy. We played chamber music together and so on. So it was like really like coming back to a family. It was not, it's never been an orchestra like going to play somewhere. It's like going back to play with your friends and relatives.